Hello, today I want to talk about DAX and measures in Power BI and to understand what you can do with them and how to basically write easy DAX and readable DAX. So for example, to begin with, DAX is the language that you're going to be using. It's all the keywords, all the parameters, all the ways for you to work. Measures are informations that you're going to add in your fields on the right of your tables, and those measures are something that you're creating, and they have all the same properties as any other data that you have. They get filtered, they get dynamically arranged depending on everything else you're putting in your document. But when would I use it? Well, for example, I can remove entire columns from my main dataset by creating measures. If I want my profits, I don't need to have the profits here because I have the units sold, the manufacturing price, sales price, gross sales, discount sales. I have everything to calculate in the end my profit, right? And make it a percentage, make it a whole number, anything I want. So why would I bother having thousands of lines of informations here that I can get back? Well, maybe if I want to find a mistake, if I want to find an issue between my profit that's registered from my managers and the informations that I received. Well, here I could compare them with DAX, and instead of having a whole new column of comparison, I could just have a measure. So let's go ahead and get into this little report I created just to work with it. You can see that I already showcased the units sold, the gross sales, a few filters, and the gross sales by year and quarter, so that we have something to compare our measures with. And let's get it going with the measures. To create it, obviously you can use the new measure button, but you can also right click on the table that you want your new measure in and add a new measure. We're going to call it my first measure, and it's going to be pretty basic. Let's zoom on that. My first measure is just going to be a sum of my gross sales. Okay, so how did that work? Well, I used the keyword sum. Sum means that I'm asking to perform this DAX formula, which is the sum of a column. And so when I open the parenthesis, it tells me that I need to add the name of the column and the name of the table, sorry, and the column so that it can sum it up. And now I close the parenthesis, press enter, and my measure is ready to work. If I unzoom and I add this new measure underneath the gross sales, we have exactly the same informations here. If I filter something, they get filtered all the same. Nothing changes, right? So this formula is not really that interesting. But in DAX, what I can do, and let's get back real close, is that I'm going to be able to do operations on this information. And for example, I can compare it to the amount of units sold to get the average price of the units in my store. And so here I can go with another sum. That's going to be the sum of units sold, so the sum of business data units sold. And here I'm going to get a value which is 113.64. This new value here, okay, let's change it up there, is dollars, and we're not going to have anything after the comma there, so we're $114 average for a unit that we're selling, right? But let's get more precise with this and look at this formula a little better. Let me rearrange this maybe a little bit for you. Okay, so here I could use a keyword instead of this divide symbol, and let's do that. I'm gonna call the function divide and open brackets, and you see that it's asking me a few informations, the numerator, denominator, and an alternate results. All those informations being separated by commas, which is always going to be the way for you to separate informations in your formulas. So let's go ahead and say that we want to divide the sum of business data gross sales by the sum of business data units sold. So let's go, add a comma here, now the new sum, and we have the luxury of adding a third information, which is if I have an issue with this result, for example divide by 0, what should I showcase? And in here I might want to see error divide by 0. Close the parenthesis. See that I could write down some code if I unzoom here by using quotation marks. Okay, so let's go. And now we're gonna have this information, and we are covering any kind of issue that could happen through time. Okay, so this is how you write DAX formulas. Basically, this is how it should go. That's the most complicated part for you is going to be to get the formulas that you need and to organize it correctly. So for this, let's go for a final DAX measure that we can actually get into the core of what it is with, and it's going to be the sum of my gross sales, but removing all filters at all time. And that's basic information, right? What I want to do is that at any point, if I filter up Mexico, Canada, France, or channel partners or anything, maybe I want to have a fixed information in this field. So in this new measure that I'm going to call total fixed sales, to make it easy to understand, we're going to use the infamous, the feared calculate formula. So this one is a special one. Calculate is a way for you to do operations using filters. What does that mean? Well, for example, you can do the sum of something by applying any kind of filter on your tables. You can have multiple expressions, checking them out, and you even have specific calls that you can do in a calculate formula that you couldn't do elsewhere. And so it allows you to go beyond what you could do with just basic expressions. It's the calculate formula. It's pretty complex, but you should get a grasp of it pretty fast. So here, let's stay with our easy sum formula, which is going to be sum of gross sales. And then we're going to get in the core of it, which is comma. And let's make that a little more readable. I'm going to go to the line by doing Shift Enter. And after my comma, I'm going to do Shift Enter again so that we really can separate every information in there. And let's say that now what we want to do, remember it's remove filters that are active. So let's do that, remove filters. So it's a specific call that you can do in the calculate formula, and it allows you to remove the filters of a specific column. So here I can do remove filters of business data country, close my parenthesis, and then by convention I'm going to the line again and closing the sum, to the line, closing the calculate, and here same thing with my sum, so it's easier to read. Okay, so what is this going to do? Let's try it out. Oops, too many arguments. Oh, sorry. So I should close the parenthesis of my sum function first. Okay, see, it's easier to read. And I still missed it. And then remove filters as I'm now in my other formula. And so here I can see that I'm in the good spots. And I should have something okay. So let's try it out. So fixed sales is going to go here. And we have exactly the same thing as gross sales. Let's now filter on France. Oh, what a surprise. France did 26 million, but we still have the fixed sales that are being showcased. What happens if I'm filtering channel partners? Well, now it's working on my fixed sales, because remember, in my query, in my formula, which is here, sorry, I didn't add this column, sorry, to my remove filters. I only added the country, and maybe we want to do that. So your DAX formula is going to take and calculate is going to take and or's filters. You can also just go on, right? There you have multiple propositions there. So let's do a filter 2 and do a remove filters of where is it? Segments. Close parenthesis. And now you could instantly see that the segments were not filtered anymore, and you can do that as much as you want. Please note that, my bad, you can't see anything here. So here we're back to the 127 millions. Whatever I choose here, whatever I filter everywhere, my informations are not going to be filtered in the fixed sales box here. And so that can be interesting for you to have any kind of information that doesn't really move in your table and in your report. And all of that using your calculate formula up there. Please note that you can also use something that is a Boolean value, and by doing a true and false call. Like for example, something that's checking out that a row of a table is equal to some value, for example, like let's say, for example, where filter my table business data, and you see that it's asking me table and then filter expression. We're not going to cover the filter function here, just want to try things out. And we're going to say where let's say product. Yeah, product's interesting. Sorry, product equal. I don't remember what was in there. Let's say chair for now, and I'll add it up. Okay, so because I did that, you can see that I have a blank value here because obviously this value wasn't included in my table, and so the calculation is wrong. What can I have here? Well, I can have VTT, which is pretty easy. We shouldn't mess up this spelling. And let's go with fixed sales, and we're gonna add this VTT value. Okay, and after adding my VTT, I'm going to remove the other filters, because if I'm filtering my table here, it's going to cancel those specific functions, because here it's a very weird interaction of calculate. I don't understand personally, but you can have those two actions at the same time, removing filters and filtering by yourself. So let's remove this. Now filter on VTT, and we'll see that it just works the same. Okay, I don't have any other figure to compare it to, but this one is pretty obvious. Now, what I wanted to use this for is that you can use and or statements here. So let's remove this view and go here, and maybe I want to see the sales for VTT low, for example. So discount band and product. Well, let's go there, get back to our DAX, and let's see. So we want to filter business data product equal VTT, but we also want to filter that our low value for the sales. So let's do a and call, which is going to see ask for two logical values. So first one is going to be business data product equal VTT, comma, to the line, and then business data discount band equal low. So what happened here? Well, sorry, to the line closing parenthesis. Here. Okay, so what happened here is that instead of using the filter function, I used the AND function because it's returning a Boolean value, true or false. And what it's saying is that we're going to filter, or do the sum of gross sales only on the lines of our table that have VTT as the product and low as the discount band. So you don't need the filter function here if I'm not mistaken. So let's try this out. And it looks like it's working, right? We have the fixed sales for VTT with a low discount that's going to appear. All of that with this one and only formula. So now let's finish this video with the thing that changed my way of working with DAX, and it's how to organize your code. I don't remember where I learned that, but I'll be sure to post a link in the description below if I think about it. So here what we want to do is use parameters. What are parameters? Well, you can see that this formula involves a lot of information, and the more you go, the more you're going to have complex DAX formulas, and if you have an error, it's very hard to know where it comes from. And with a good organization, you will be able to. So there's a and let's create a quick new measure to just show that. Okay, there's a way to write DAX measures in a comfortable way, and it's this. So you're going to have the name of your measure equals something. Then you're going to go to the line and call a new variable. This variable is going to be called a var. Var is always what you're going to use to declare to Power BI that and to in your DAX that this is a variable. So it's not going to be when you return as a result of your calculations. So here it can be anything. It can be your sales equal, so see it's blue because it's a variable, it's not a value, and it's going to be equal to average of my sales price. See, okay, sales price, but divided by 100 for some reason. Don't ask me why, this is what the boss asked for. And then I'm going to have another variable thing equal to divide my business data fixed sales by my business data by my first measure, and then we're gonna want to do something with it, right? And so, oops, my bad. And then to return, what you're gonna do is write return, go to the line, and here you say what you want to return, and maybe you want to return sales times thing. So this is the organization you have to write down your DAX formulas. Why? Well, because it's pretty easy to test out where you have a bug, where you have an issue, whatever is happening in your code. Because here I could just test out what comes out from sales. I could test out what comes out from thing. I can correct things much easier. So now, let's try this out by removing this wrong one and going back to our fixed sales. How do I convert this in this organization that I just shared? Well, I'm going to say that my fixed sales are going to be a variable which is going to be my total of sales equal to this. Okay. Moving all those spaces, we don't need them here. So this is my total sales. So it means that here I'm just able to replace that with total sales. Okay. Like so. Then I want to have this test as my variable. Well, test is going to be equal to this thing. So I'm going to cut it, copy it, remove all those annoying spaces that we don't need anymore. Or you could keep them depending on how complicated it is. Here it's just a basic AND statement, so I'm not going to bother too much. Okay. So here we are, and now we can add another variable that is the calculation, let's say, and it's gonna be equal to calculate. Okay, calculate my total sales using my test. And I'm going to return my calculation. Okay, had a little cut here. So I was finishing up everything. Last thing we need to realize is that here I have an error, right? Product and segment are underlined in red because I cannot call them in this instance of AND because we're not in the calculate function anymore. So we're going to compensate that by doing a filter now. So we're going to filter and see it's asking for a table, so let's add our business data table, and then we're going to check the expression, and it's going to be AND business data product equal VTT, but we don't need to use that anymore because we stated that we're in the business data table first, so we remove those. Product and segment are defined, and this is our filter, right? So here we are, we have this sum of a filter depending on two informations in our calculate table. So this is how as complicated as it gets for beginners, but at least here you can debug things pretty easily, right? If I have an issue, I can check out what tests is giving away, what total sales giving away, what results is giving away. Okay, and so we're towards the end of our work here. So I replaced my AND statement with a filter and an AND statement to fit better my variable better, and I have my total sales. But one issue remains. If I make this go through and I remove this view, you can see that my fixed sales here are not at all filtered. I took a little time to add a little more information here, and this is a gross sales filtered on VTT with a low discount band. Well, those two numbers are not at all the same. Let's put them together so that we have something to monitor. So why is that? Well, it's because using variables with your calculation is something that's not going to change. When I set up this value, it's not this calculation, it's now a fixed value, so you cannot filter it in the same way. But what I can do is filter another measure, or just keep the old writing and have my sum here. Okay, I could have sum of business data gross sales, and it solves our problem. But I could also, instead of doing all this, call my first measure that I did earlier, because my first measure, when I was done, I made it again to be a gross sales sum, and now what you can do is call this other measure that you have by using a bracket, and then it's going to offer all those columns. But what you want to do is simply to use my I don't know how to type anymore, bracket my first measure, which is not in the sum anymore, and here you have it. So by doing this, you are using something that's way easier to maintain and to read. And now let's check it out, and we have our example value that fits our exercise. So here we can now have two filters using a calculate statement. So I think that's enough for today. It's already a lot, but I hope that this is gonna help you. It took me a while and I'm still not super comfortable with everything in DAX, but it's a very useful tool and you can go very deep with it. So yeah, see you around.